Think about your daily life for just a moment. The roads you drive on, the laws protecting you, maybe getting your driver's license right.
Yeah, things we often take for granted.
Exactly. All these things, they're touched by something we maybe don't think about much. A field that sounds, well, maybe a bit academic. Public administration.
But it's really the engine room, isn't it? The quiet force making society function.
That's a great way to put it. And today, that's our deep dive. You've given us this fantastic set of sources, some real foundational stuff, plus newer insights showing how it's all still changing.
A really rich mix, definitely.
So our mission here is to unpack the key ideas from these sources for you. What is public administration, really? How is it scope shifting? Is it an art, a science? How does it stack up against, say, running a business?
And crucially, why it matters so much today.
Absolutely. Get ready for, well, maybe some surprises and definitely a new way to see how the world around you actually works. Okay, so let's kick things off. When we say administration, just that word on its own, what are we really talking about? What's its sort of core meaning?
It's quite revealing, actually, when you look at the roots. The word comes from two Latin words, administra.
Administra.
Which basically means to attend or to serve. So at its most fundamental level, it's about looking after things or, looking after people.
Surveying people.
Exactly. Early thinkers like Dwight Waldo put it just like that. To serve, to care for, or to look after the people. Luther Gulick was even more direct. Administration has to do with getting things done, achieving specific goal.
Getting things done.
So it's not just managing tasks, it's purposeful action, turning ideas into reality, basically.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Now, within that idea of getting things done, we hear terms like administration, organization, management. People use them, well, almost interchangeably sometimes. Is there a clear difference?
That's a really good question because, yeah, they overlap a lot in practice, but some thinkers did try to draw distinctions. William Schultz, for instance, suggested administration is about setting the big picture. The overall goals, the broad policies.
The what and why.
Kind of. Then the organization is the structure you build to achieve that the people, the materials, the tools, all brought together.
The vehicle, so to speak.
Right. And management is the active part. It leads, it guides, it directs that organization to actually reach the goal. It's the driving.
Okay, so administration sets the destination, management drives the car, and the organization is the car. That helps.
That's a great analogy. Now, it's worth adding, people like Peter Drucker saw management more in the business context, economic performance, and administration maybe more for non-business things.
Ah, okay.
And there's another view, too, administration as following the rules, doing things in known settings, while management is more about dynamism, creativity, maybe innovation. So related, but different angles.
Okay, that clarifies administration broadly. But the moment we put public in front of it,
yeah,
that changes things significantly, right? We're not just talking efficiency anymore.
Precisely. Adding public shifts the entire focus. Public here essentially means governmental.
Right.
So public administration is government administration. It operates within that whole political system, focusing mainly on the public bureaucracy, how government works.
And Woodrow Wilson, he's a big name here, isn't he?
Huge, often called one of the fathers of the field. He famously defined it as the systematic execution of law. Basically, every time the law is applied, that's an act of administration.
Putting law into action.
Exactly. L.D. White built on that, saying it's all the operations aimed at fulfilling or enforcing public policy.
And it's not just the executive branch, the doing part of government, even though that's where a lot happens.
That's right. Luther Gulick pointed out that while it's primarily focused on the executive branch, where the main work gets done, there are definitely administrative aspects in the legislative and judicial branches, too.
Makes sense.
And James Fessler even stressed it's not just about executing policy, but also policy formulation. It's involved earlier in the process, too.
So it's really a cooperative effort across government.
Yeah, a cooperative group effort in a public setting. It touches all three branches, their relationships. Mohit Bhattacharya called it the action part of the government. Planning, setting goals, working with legislators, supervising people, leadership.
Wow, that's broad.
It is. And that's why a later definition from the Minnowbrook Conference III in 2008 described it as a socially embedded process of dialogue and action to promote human flourishing for all. really captures that wider purpose.
Which probably explains why it's so hard to nail down one single definition.
Exactly that. Public administration is always being sort of reinvented because it's so contextual. New challenges arise, new ideas emerge, like the new public service approach focusing more on citizens and public value.
It adapts.
Constantly. Dwight Waldo said, "The state of government administration is ever evolving." He actually warned against trying to cram it into one sentence, saying it leads to mental paralysis rather than enlightenment. Its boundaries just aren't fixed. They stretch, they shrink depending on the circumstances. I mean, think about how things shifted during the pandemic, right? Huge administrative adaptations were needed almost overnight.
Absolutely. So if it's hard to define, its scope must be pretty fluid too. What sets its boundaries? Or does it even have them?
You're right on track. Waldo's idea applies here too. The scope is based on government inaction. And since government action is always changing, the scope changes too. It's basically defined by what an administrative system does.
Which can be a lot.
A whole lot, and scholars have tried to map this out using different lenses. First, you've got the narrow versus broad view.
Okay.
The narrow view, people like Herbert Simon, they limit it just to the executive branch, the actual doing part. Government inaction.
Just the engine room itself.
Pretty much. But the broad view, folks like Wilson and L.D. White, they argue it covers all three branches: legislative, executive, judiciary, and how they all interact. Much wider.
Okay, so that's which parts of government? What about what kind of activities count?
That leads to the managerial versus integral view. The managerial view, again, Simon Gulick, focuses on those core management functions: planning, organizing, commanding, controlling, coordinating, sometimes called POSDCORB.
The management toolkit.
Essentially. But the integral view says, hold on, it's broader than that. It includes not just managing, but also the technical work, the clerical stuff, even the manual activities needed to get the job done, everything involved.
So the whole operation top to bottom.
Exactly. Then there's another key debate,
Mm-hmm.
the process view versus the substantive view.
Process versus substantive.
Okay. The process view, strongly associated with Luther Gulick and Lyndall Irwick, focuses on universal management principles. They came up with that famous acronym, POSDCORB.
POSDCORB. Planning, organizing, staffing.
Directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. Exactly. They believed these principles were universal tools, applicable anywhere in administration, regardless of the specific job.
Like a set of standard operating procedures.
Kind of. But that felt incomplete to some.
Yeah, I can see that. Government does so many different things.
Precisely. So the substantive or subject matter view comes in. It argues that, yes, the tools are important, but you also have to consider the specific content of the policy area.
Like running a health department is different from running intelligence.
Exactly. The processes, the knowledge, the context are vastly different. Think about the difference between, say, any Ayog in India doing broad planning versus an intelligence agency like RAW or ID. Very different subject matter, needing different administrative approaches. This view really broadened the scope, making PA much more multidisciplinary.
That makes a lot of sense. Any other key ways of looking at the scope?
One more worth mentioning is Michael Spacer's discretionist versus instrumental view.
Mm-hmm.
The discretionist view sees public administrators as having some autonomy, some room to use their judgment, guided by values like public interest.
Well, they have some leeway.
Right. Whereas the instrumental view sees them more as, well, instruments. Their job is simply to carry out the will of the state or government, like bureaucracy just being an extension of political power.
Okay, so it really seems like public administration touches almost everything government does. Does that mean it struggles with having its own clear identity, this crisis of identity you mentioned?
That has definitely been a concern because it covers so much, especially once you bring in public policy studies, formulation, execution, monitoring. Its scope just became everything under the sun. Where are the boundaries?
Yeah, it sounds potentially overwhelming.
But thinkers like Fredrickson and Dwight Waldo actually defended this diverse, polyglot nature. They argued it's a strength, bringing enrichment and clarity, not confusion. Well, Waldo's idea comes back here. Public administration has a stable core. That's the government in action part. That gives it a solid identity.
Wait, anchor.
Exactly. But around that core is a vacillating periphery. This periphery changes, it expands, it contracts, and that's what makes it multidisciplinary. It's not boundaryless chaos, it's dynamic expansion around a stable center.
Okay, that's a helpful way to think about it. A stable core, shifting edges. Now, given it draws from so many fields and keeps evolving, does it stand on its own as an academic discipline, like economics or sociology? Or is it still, finding its place?
That's been a long-running debate among scholars. Some, like Gerald Caden, were quite critical, calling it an underdeveloped discipline. He argued it lacked a single, consistent approach, its own unique methods, its own core principles. He even said there are theories in public administration, but not theories of public administration.
Ouch. That's quite pointed.
It is. And even Waldo acknowledged that crisis of identity, partly because it borrows so much from other social sciences. It's sometimes seen as a bag of borrowings.
So that's the case against it being a distinct discipline. What about the arguments for it?
Well, a strong counter is that, hey, we live in a multidisciplinary era. Almost all fields borrow ideas now to grow and get richer. It's normal.
Good point.
And crucially, public administration is taught as its own subject, its own body of knowledge in universities all over the world. That's a pretty strong indicator of disciplinary status, right?
True. You don't usually have whole departments for something that isn't considered a field.
Exactly. And Waldo's concept, again, that stable core of government in action, it gives it a distinct focus, even if its edges borrow from elsewhere. So while it draws from many sources, it does have its own unique perspective and body of knowledge.
Okay, so it's arguably a discipline. What about being a profession, like medicine or law? Does it meet that standard?
Another excellent question. To be considered a profession, a field usually needs a few key things: its own specialized knowledge base, formal training and education, a clear sense of social responsibility, a universal code of conduct, and usually some kind of parent body or institution.
Right. So how did public administration measure up?
It does pretty well on some fronts. It definitely has a growing body of specialized knowledge, tools, techniques, theories. There's dedicated training and education. Think of civil service academies or specific committees focused on training administrators.
Like the PC HOTA committee mentioned for generalists.
Exactly. And its social responsibility is undeniable, serving the public, implementing policy. That's core.
Okay, so knowledge, training, responsibility check. Where does it fall short?
Primarily in two areas. First, it lacks a single, universally accepted code of conduct that applies to all public administrators everywhere. And related to that, there isn't really a strong enforcement mechanism for professional ethics across the board.
Yeah, that's different from law or medicine with their strict codes and boards.
Precisely. And second, there's no single global parent body or association that represents and regulates all practitioners. So because of those gaps, it's often called a profession in making. It has many professional characteristics, but it's not quite fully there yet. It's still evolving in that sense.
A profession in making. Okay. Now, the classic question for fields like this, is it an art or a science? Or maybe, like many things, a bit of both.
Yes, the art versus science debate. Many strongly argue it's an art. Ian Gladden said its claim to be an art is rarely challenged. It definitely requires specialized knowledge and techniques like any craft.
Requires skill and judgment.
Absolutely. Charlesworth said it requires fineness, leadership, zeal, and lofty conviction. Those sound pretty artistic, right? And the managerial school, focusing on tools and processes like POSDCORB, points out that these can be taught and learned, like mastering an art or a skill. It involves human judgment, adaptation, finesse.
Okay, I can see the art side. But what about science? Can it be studied systematically like that?
That's where the debate really heats up. The arguments against it being a pure science often come from a strict positivist view. Herbert Simon, for example, argued it falls short on objectivity, systematization, and predictability hallmarks of natural sciences.
Hard to predict human behavior in government.
Exactly. Robert Dahl pointed out you can't ignore values normative considerations. How do you objectively measure human behavior or motivations in a lab setting? It's messy. Plus, cultural factors differ so much between countries, making universal comparative scientific study really difficult. It struggles with those strict scientific steps: hypothesis, testing, generalization, prediction.
So the human element makes it hard to be purely scientific. That sounds like a strong case against. But are there arguments for it being a science?
Oh, yes. They come from a slightly different angle on what science means. Max Weber argued that, sure, physical sciences study objective things objectively, but social sciences, like public administration, involve the objective study of both objective and subjective things. That doesn't automatically disqualify them.
So studying subjective things scientifically is possible.
That's the argument. Luther Gulick believed administration is governed by laws or principles, just like physics, and it's the job of the administrative scientist to discover them.
Find the underlying rules.
Right. And Karl Popper added a philosophical point. All scientific knowledge is provisional anyway, always capable of being disproven. So, the fact that public administration ideas evolve doesn't mean it's not scientific.
Interesting point.
Charles A. Beard was quite bullish, calling it a body of exact knowledge derived from experience and observation. He even thought it was as much a general science as economics, sociology, or biology, and more of a science than history or politics. Willoughby also argued for fundamental principles similar to other sciences.
Wow, so strong opinions on both sides.
Definitely. The consensus, if there is one, is maybe that it has a degree of scientism. It uses systematic methods, it tries to build knowledge based on evidence, but it's always going to involve that human value-laden element. So the debate continues. Less science versus more science.
Okay, that makes sense. It's got scientific aspects, but maybe isn't a hard science. Now let's shift here slightly. Public versus private administration. Government versus business. We often see them as totally separate worlds. But how different are they really in how they're managed? Is it one field or two?
That's another one of those classic fundamental debates in the field. You have scholars like Henry Fayol, a pioneer in management who believed firmly there's only one administrative science that applies equally to public and private sectors. Basically, administration is administration, period.
Management is management wherever you find it.
That's the idea. But then you have many others, John Gauss, Paul Appleby, Josiah Stamp, Herbert Simon, who strongly argued there are crucial fundamental differences.
So what are those key differences they point to?
Well, Herbert Simon highlighted that public administration is inherently bureaucratic and political, while private administration is more businesslike, driven by markets, and generally non-political. He also made that distinction about public sector red tape versus private sector efficiency, though that's often debated.
Yeah, that's a common stereotype.
It is. Felix Negro pointed to sheer scale. He argued no private company can match the government in its sheer size and diversity of activities. Just the scope is different.
And accountability must be a huge factor.
It's absolutely central. So Josiah Stamp identified 4 key principles. First, uniformity. Public admin has to treat citizens uniformly, often bound by strict laws and regulations. Private companies have more flexibility.
Right.
Second, external financial control. Public money is controlled by legislatures, representing the people. Private finance is internal or market-driven. Third, ministerial responsibility. Public administrators are accountable upwards to political leaders and ultimately to the public, not the same direct public accountability in private firms.
Makes sense.
And fourth, marginal return. Public services aren't usually measured by profit or loss. Their success is judged differently, based on public value or service delivery, not just the bottom line.
Okay, those are pretty significant structural differences. What else?
Paul Appleby added 3 more points. The breadth of scope, impact, and consideration in public administration is unmatched. Government decisions affect everyone. Second, that intense public accountability we mentioned everything is potentially under public scrutiny. And third, the inherent political character. Administration is political, constantly balancing interests, responding to public will.
It operates in a political fishbowl.
Constantly. And beyond those big principles, there are other key distinctions. The obvious one. Absence of profit motive in most public services versus the profit drive in business. Public administrators often have higher prestige, especially in some developing countries.
The public servant idea.
Exactly. Everything happens under the public gaze. Actions are scrutinized by media, citizens, opposition. Public admin operates within a strict legal framework, constitutional provisions, specific laws governing services. Think about the All India Services and Article 312 in the Indian Constitution, for example.
Very rule-bound.
And needing consistency of treatment, non-discrimination is crucial. Governments also handle monopolistic and essential services, defense, currency, law, and order that private firms typically don't. There's often official anonymity for senior officials. The decision is the government's, not the individual's. Huge emphasis on financial meticulousness. It's public money.
Right.
And this sometimes contributes to that perception of lower efficiency compared to private firms, which have the profit motive and perhaps more flexibility, though, again, that's a generalization.
Okay, that's a pretty comprehensive list of differences.
Yeah.
But you said Fayol and others thought they were similar. So where do they overlap? What common ground exists?
That's the other side of the coin, and it's equally important. Remember Fayol's view, administration is administration, and situational theorists argue the differences aren't inherent, they're just due to the different circumstances they operate in. Studies of hybrid organizations like public-private partnerships often find more similarities than dissimilarities.
Interesting. So what are some specific similarities?
Well, both definitely rely on common skills, techniques, and procedures. Accounting, planning, personnel management, the basics are often similar. That's why public-private partnerships, PPPs, can work. They leverage shared approaches.
They speak a common language to some extent.
Exactly. We also see public sector enterprises increasingly adopting a profit motive, or at least focusing on financial sustainability. Think of state-owned enterprises aiming for profitability, like India's Maharatnas and Navaratnas. Private firms have also borrowed heavily from public personnel practices over the years.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things related to structured recruitment, job classification, sometimes even benefit structures. And private firms aren't totally free agents. They operate under government regulatory constraints, corporate laws, environmental rules, tax policies.
Right. Government sets the rules of the game.
They do. Both often have similar hierarchical management systems, and increasingly both are focused on the end-user customer centricity. Governments use things like citizen charters, businesses use customer relationship management, but the goal is similar: improve service, be responsive.
Serving the people or the customer?
Fundamentally, yes. Both serve clients or customers and increasingly seek feedback to improve. Dwight Waldo actually concluded that many of those supposed sharp distinctions, like special care for equality or legal authorization, are often of very limited applicability in practice. Things are blurrier than the theories suggest.
So the bottom line?
The bottom line is probably that they are, as one source put it, two species of the same genus. They share a common administrative DNA, but they definitely have special values and techniques of their own which give to each its distinctive character. They're related, but distinct.
Related but distinct. That sums it up well. Okay, we've explored what it is, its scope, its nature, how it compares to private admin. Now let's bring it all together. Why is understanding public administration so significant, especially today? Woodrow Wilson had some early thoughts on this.
He really laid the groundwork. Wilson argued that studying administration became crucial because society was getting more complex, the functions of the state were growing, and democracy was spreading. His goal for the field was clear: discover what government can properly and successfully do, and how it can do these things with utmost efficiency and the least possible cost. He really pushed for it to be seen as a systematic, almost scientific body of knowledge.
And this wasn't just happening in academia, right?
Yeah.
Major government reports also pushed the field forward.
Absolutely. Landmark reports from committees in the UK, the US, India, and elsewhere, like the Haldane Committee, the President's Committee on Administrative Management, the Gorwala and Appleby reports in India, the Fulton Committee in the UK, Administrative Reforms Commissions. These all critically examined how government worked and proposed major reforms, shaping the practice and study of public administration.
They drove real change.
Significant change. And in many developing nations, this led to the emergence of development administration as a specific focus: how to use administrative tools to accelerate economic growth and social change.
So the practical need drove the field. How does that publicness manifest in our daily lives now?
It's everywhere, really. We as citizens depend on public administration for so much health, safety, infrastructure, education. Think about the global coordination needed during the COVID-19 pandemic, the calls for solidarity from the UN, that's public administration on a massive scale.
It also plays a role in fairness and equity.
A huge role. Public administration is central to affirmative action programs and raising awareness about rights and welfare schemes, especially for marginalized groups. Think about recent policies recognizing LGBTQIA+ rights or providing targeted support.
It informs people too, right?
Definitely. Through information, education, and communication IECs, it helps people understand government services and how to access them. It empowers citizens, and we see a shift towards a rights-based approach where citizens are more aware and assertive about their entitlements, like the right to education.
We live in what some call the administrative state.
That's a common term. Essentially, public administration has become such an indispensable part of modern society. Its scope keeps expanding as governments take on new functions, like India creating a new ministry, Jal Shakti, specifically for water resources. It's constantly adapting to new challenges.
And ultimately, it's about well-being.
At its core, yes, human welfare. Providing essential services, health, education, sanitation, social security. Even things like corporate social responsibility rules often complement government welfare efforts.
There are some powerful quotes about its importance.
There are. Brooke Adams called administration crucial for facilitating social change and cushioning revolutionary shocks. W.B. Donham warned that civilization could fail due to administrative breakdown. Paul Appleby put it starkly, administration is the basis of government. No government can exist without administration.
Wow. No pressure then.
Right. And Gerald Caden listed its vital roles: preserving the state, ensuring stability, managing change, running large enterprises, protecting vulnerable groups, shaping public opinion, influencing policy. It's a massive portfolio.
Okay, that sets the stage. Now, looking specifically at the 21st century, why is public administration becoming even more critical now? What are the driving forces?
Several big factors are amplifying its importance. First, the continued emergence of the welfare and democratic state. This led to what's often called the era of big state, with governments doing more, regulating more, even in mixed economies like India's. More government activity means more need for effective administration.
The state is just involved in more aspects of life.
Increasingly so. Second, the legacy of the Industrial Revolution and ongoing technological change. This constantly forces governments to adapt, creating new laws for industries, labor, technology, all requiring administration to implement and oversee. Think about the new labor codes or regulations around AI.
Technology itself is a huge driver, isn't it?
Monumental. Scientific and technological development is a double-edged sword. It creates new challenges, but also provides amazing new tools. AI, big data, quantum computing, these can revolutionize service delivery and government operations. Think of the success of India's JAM Trinity, or UPI, for financial inclusion and payments. Technology makes big government more feasible and potentially more effective.
It enables scale.
Exactly. Then there's economic planning. Especially in developing countries, centralized or guided economic planning requires a sophisticated administrative machinery to set targets, allocate resources, and monitor progress. Planning commissions, or bodies like Niti Aayog, are prime examples.
And finally, just the sheer complexity and, frankly, scariness of modern challenges.
Absolutely. Our sources explicitly mention the huge 21st century challenges: population explosion, rising social conflicts and violence, things like mob lynching, cyber warfare, global pandemics like COVID-19, the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters due to climate change, erosion of social harmony, ethnic conflicts.
The list is long and daunting.
Yeah, it's quite a list. And every single one of those issues demands a robust, effective, and often coordinated international public administration response. Whether it's managing a health crisis, dealing with disaster relief, tackling cyber threats, or trying to mediate conflict, effective public administration is absolutely critical. It's no longer optional. It's essential for navigating the world we live in.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive mean for you, the listener? We've seen public administration as, well, complicated, it's dynamic, it's woven into almost everything, and it's constantly adapting to serve you. It's that vital, often invisible link, turning political promises into the reality you navigate every day.
Which really brings us to a final thought. This raises an important question, doesn't it? In a time when people are more aware of their rights than ever and these huge global challenges demand we all work together, how might your active engagement, going beyond just being a recipient of services, how might that actually shape the future of public administration? How can your participation help it better achieve that goal of human flourishing for everyone? Something to think about, perhaps, as you look at how government works in your own community and country.